Welcome back to my channel. This is going to be part 4, the final part, talking about me and Emmure over the years from 2004 all the way up to 2015. And in this video, we'll be talking about pretty much 2011, 12, 13, 14, and 15. The last 2 records I recorded, talking about some of the tours, some of the ideas of how we wrote some of the songs, and more. Also, special announcement coming up at the end, so stay tuned for that. All right, so I guess we could start with 2000, a little bit 2010 probably, 2011 and 2012. This is the time where we did Slave to the Game. We recorded that with Joey Sturgis. That was the second record we did with him. And then this time, you know, he'd upgrade some of his equipment. Again, we went to his house in the middle of Connersville, Indiana, and it was a great experience. It was just literally like relaxing, having your own room to just chill in, and then walk through the living room into the studio room. So that was really cool. This is also the time we got Mark Castillo in the band, so he was there to do drums and hang out. And again, you know, that was an album that was written primarily on the road, in the van or in the bus as we started renting buses. As awesome as that looks, it costs a lot of money. People don't understand that renting a tour bus could be easily well into the 6 figures for a 4-week tour. So don't be fooled. It costs a lot of money, and we did not make much money because we did that. But at the same time, you have the weight of, we want to have a big look. We want to, you know, make it look like, you know, we're this big band, because the mystique in music is gone now. Now with the internet, it's different. Where before you had to buy the record or CD and you had to see them live. Otherwise, you didn't know the set list. You didn't know what they were even wearing. You didn't know anything. So that's why everybody went to concerts and everybody bought CDs back in the day. So that's a whole separate rant. But regardless, we tracked that record, came out great, super stoked on that. Frank and I went back and forth with writing a little bit at my apartment in Queens. I went to where he was living at the time, and again, he's moved around a few places. I mean, when he left Queens, I forgot where, but I stayed with him for like a week and a half, and we worked on a bunch of stuff. And then we ended up going for about 3 weeks to Joey's studio, and then we recorded that whole thing. Mark joined, like I said, at that point, and we were doing so many amazing tours. We'd already done the big festivals, so now we're, you know, pretty much every summer doing festivals in Europe, playing big shows, you know, meeting tons of people, having a really, really good time. That was like when we were really, really thriving. I would say 2010, but like 11, 12, 13, 14 probably was really when we were rolling on along. You know, we went to Mexico and did Mexico with a bunch of shows with As I Dying there. That was pretty interesting. We saw them in Greece randomly, so you'll meet up with different bands that you're friends with, like in different parts of the world. We ended up going to New Zealand, Australia 2 or 3 times, Southeast Asia, you know, all over Southeast Asia, Singapore and Hong Kong, Bangkok, all those places. That was an incredible trip. People showed us so much love. It was so good, and an amazing experience. So, and then of course Europe, we used to go, I'd say 2 to 3 times a year. So we went to Europe probably about 15 to 16 times, and you know, that was like America part 2. We just felt like home. So Europe festivals were unbelievably amazing. You know, and at that point we ended up doing the Trespass America tour. That was 2012, I think. That was with Five Finger Death Punch, Trivium, Killswitch Engage, God Forbid, Pop Evil. That was such a massive tour. You know, we played here in Nashville at the Bridgestone Arena. It was an arena tour, and we were in an RV that we rented that we ended up destroying and having to pay a lot of money for. Not on purpose, just because an RV with 9 or 10 people in it going across the country for 7 weeks, it's not built for that, really. So that thing got beat up, and that's a whole separate thing. But either way, that was a great tour. We made good friends with the Five Finger dudes and Trivium and everybody else that was on the tour. Really, really good time. And, you know, moving forward, we definitely really, really felt that the momentum was going. Had the album come out, our 5th album, and then that leads us to 2013 pretty much. There we go. So that leads us to about 2013, like I was saying before. We were rolling on all the tours, you know, again, the Ibanez endorsements, meeting so many people, just really appreciating the time and the culture. And as time goes on, as you spend more and more time with people, sometimes rubbing elbows so close can get irritating, and it's tough to really learn to manage that. And unfortunately, 2013 and 14 is when it started to kind of unravel between Frank and I, or Frank and the whole band, and issues started coming up, and sit downs and talks and certain things. So that was starting to get a little difficult, but we wanted to troop on and really keep the dream alive. So 2013, so we did the Mayhem tour, and that was unbelievable. That was Rob Zombie, Five Finger Death Punch, Mastodon, Machine Head, Children of Bodom. Who else was on that? There was a bunch of people. Behemoth, Motionless in White. That was the album that I think we tracked. Again, as soon as we finished recording the last album, we months later started writing for Eternal Enemies, which we recorded, I believe, came out in 2014. So we recorded it right, 2 months, 3 months probably before that came out. So Eternal Enemies, it was tricky, difficult to write again because our headspace wasn't quite there. We had that DVD we put out that if any of you've seen, you'd see that there was some vicious fights in there. Frank and Mark got into it, and Mark Castillo, and you could just kind of tell the element was just not as wholesome as it was, unfortunately. But we got through writing the record. I think there's some great songs on that album, Eternal Enemies. And that one we did with Nick Scott, a good dude, great dude, in Michigan. And he works with Joey, so they mixed it together, but Nick Scott engineered it with Matt Dalton. Matt Dalton owned the studio, I believe. He's a great dude also. I think he's still up there, and he's touring now. But either way, we recorded up there, and that was when it was -degree weather. The van barely would get any temperature in it. It was very difficult. We would walk through the snow over to the studio, or I think we drove, but it was not far, the hotel from the studio. It was right around the corner, and it was just really painful and depressing because it was so cold and snowy, and it was dark at 4:30 p.m., and it was pretty much me and Frank there the whole time. We'd have Mark came in to do the drums, came in and left, I believe. Again, the last record came for a week and then left. So just to save us money on groceries and stay for the record budget. So we did that record. I'm not sure what month we did that record, but around that same time we did the Mayhem 2014, which was probably one of the best things we ever did in our career and lives. That was with Korn, Avenged Sevenfold. I'm trying to think who else. Suicide Silence, King 810, Cannibal Corpse, Trivium, Massing Alexandria, and Body Count. Body Count was on that. So that was interesting seeing Ice-T and Coco walking around every day by our bus or whatever with their dog, and just sitting next to catering. Now, for those of you that don't know, when you do tours with big bands, usually when it's festivals, everybody eats in the same area. You wait online for catering, and it's an amazing experience because you're just sitting next to, I ended up hanging out with, was it Pat, I think, from Cannibal Corpse, and we chatted, and he's like, yo, that Axe Effects you have sounds sick, man. Can we talk about the tone one day? And these are things I couldn't imagine as a kid ever happening. Unreal, blowing my mind. So, just experiences like that, meeting the guys from Korn, playing on stage and seeing Head and Fieldy just jamming out, watching us, fueling my, my inner child's I can't believe this. And after we played, they're like, yo, you guys were cold, man. It reminds me when we were younger, it was just an unbelievable experience doing that tour. Hanging out with John Five, a virtuoso guitar player that plays for Rob Zombie. Just so much, hanging out with Behemoth guys, having drinks with them. Just such an interesting, eclectic situation. So that was forever one of the best things we ever did, that tour. And to go back to the recording a little bit, for Eternal Enemies, funny story. Wrote it pretty much the same, me and Frank back and forth. Mike had some ideas, Mark has ideas. Mark basically mostly wrote MDMA. I know it's from the record before, I believe, but just made me randomly think of that. So we all had a part in really making these records whole. I didn't do everything, I'm not here to say that, but definitely when it came to tracking guitars and bass, it was most all of it. And Mike would come out and hang out, or he would put his his songs, he would make sure his nuances are there. He would record, or for consistency I might re-record or learn what it is from him and play it exactly while he's there, whatever it takes to make the record basically. So funny one, News in Astoria NIA, that song, ba 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 da ba da ba da 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 da. that song came from, Frank got an email from somebody that was like, hey, Emmure boy, why don't you write a song from this? And it was just a bunch of zeros. It was just all zeros, like with dashes, like it was random. Frank forwarded me the email. He was like, hey, see if you could write a song with this, like as a joke. And I read it, and I ended up thinking of a groove, and I wrote the whole entire News and Historia song. And then we worked on the last pattern together. The very last pattern that ends the song out was something we worked out together. So that's an awesome and funny story about that song. I hope that makes you laugh, because we took something that was supposed to be offensive from somebody. I hope you're out there. You're the one that sent Frank that email, because thank you, dude. We wrote a great song from the idea of, write a song with this stupid 0 0. And I was like, okay, and we did. So things like that happen. Songs get written from random funny things, like I was saying in the other video, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and for the Felony song. But that's really the beauty in writing music, is just taking in what you hear, putting it out, and letting everybody be like, oh wow, okay, I could hear it how you hear it. So that's really was the exciting part about writing News and Historia. Let me back up real quick to about 2013, I think, is when this happened, actually, when we were in Russia. And I'm sure most of all you know this, Frank unfortunately shocked himself on stage from bad grounding and just water and just a big sweaty room. That was the same tour. I broke my toe right after that happened. I was so frustrated, so mad at the venue, just in a bad mind space. And I kicked the store a bunch of times. I basically almost powderized my toe. Broke the toe, then we had to fly to Israel right from there to do a festival. That was very painful, a lot of pressure in the toe. And then, it was so hard for me to walk around this big hotel. Us, Attila, a ton of bands were there. The festival got canceled, so we were in Israel for 2 days and we didn't even get to play. We got to check out the beach and all the things. I actually went to the hospital in Israel, and that was a weird experience because, again, we pulled up to the hospital and there was probably a 16-year-old with a machine gun that was like, let me see the inside of your trunk, making sure we don't have any bombs or anything. And it was just, you get so used to what you know, and then you experience some stuff and you're like, all right, that is wild. I'm very thankful and proud that I mean, and nothing against anybody that lives in Israel or anywhere that's not, the United States, but I commend you for putting up with anything that's just not what we are used to. That's, you just go to a hospital and leave, versus checking for bombs. Just a scary, dark situation, low income or low budget that hospital had. But either way, that was all the same tour. I went home and I couldn't go to Japan. I was really, really sad about that. So the band went to Japan without me. I think that was the only thing the band ever did in my time being in the band without me, was end up going to Japan and Australia. It was a quick run. And Mike did all the guitars, so big ups and respect for that. So now moving back forward towards the end, this is really it. 2014, 15. The album came out. We're rolling along. We're doing festivals and shows. Same story, right? That I've been preaching. Basically, Mark Castillo, after all the issues he had, unfortunately, and issues with Frank and personal issues, he left the band. And then at that point, I believe we got my buddy Tanner Wayne, who plays in Flames now. He played drums for us for a while. He helped us out. Then he ended up, going on to something else. And then my good buddy Adam Pierce, he played with All Shall Perish. He joined the band until we all left, until I left. So Adam was in the band, and then to the end of 2014, after the summer tours, the Mayhem and all that, going into the winter, took some time off. Then we toured a little in the spring. Then the very last tour that I did with Emmure we went to Europe and Russia, I think, and again, things were just really deteriorating. The fiber, the moral fiber was not there anymore. I already knew I wanted to leave. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. It wasn't a great time like it was in the beginning. Everybody felt the dark vibes. I guess I always had a positive outlook. Maybe some things I made it seem like it was difficult. I didn't want to be there. I made it seem like, cranky about this or that, or complaining about things. And, Frank might have surely taken that a certain way, and within his own issues, we clashed. And that's where he wrote that song, I think, I forgot what it's called, something Russian Disaster, something on their newest record that has the word Russia Hotel Disaster or something like that, some shit. But all I know is that's what that was. I was in a hotel and I was telling Mike, I'm going to leave. I can't do this anymore, man. I'm just going to move on. And wished the best, and then Mike was like, I'm gonna go if you're gonna go. And apparently, I guess Frank had overheard that, and then he went back in the other room and was like, well, that's that, so who else is leaving? And everybody's like, what's going on? And we kind of didn't really talk about it, and we all went separately to the airport, went home, and then I got on the phone with Frank and was like, yeah, man, I just can't do this anymore. I'm gonna move on. I can't do it, sorry. It was very sad. It was a very tough choice. It took me, all of like probably 2 years of just this built up, we just couldn't really talk it out, unfortunately. Fast forward, and before I fast forward, that's really it. So that's the whole story of everything that happened, all the glory, all the good, all the bad. At that point, I was in a bad mindset. I didn't know if the band was going to go on. Frank luckily got Josh, Travis, and his band of friends and people that they work with to keep the band going. At the time, it was frustrating. I started a new band called Painless with Mike and Mark and Jake, and didn't really do too much with that. Just kind of made a video and an album and kind of had some fun with it. Didn't do any shows at all. And I was feeling pretty resentful. I didn't talk to Frank for a long time until fast forward to last year, 2023. I started doing this YouTube, and I started feeling good about hearing the songs. I started feeling like a weight off of me. Like, yeah, I like hearing, his voice, and I like hearing the songs we wrote, and I was enjoying doing this YouTube genuinely. And then last October, November or something, I ended up just saying, you know what? I hit him up. I said, let's meet up. Let's talk. So we had met up, and we chatted for an hour and came to a really good understanding of kind of what happened. And we've both grown, 8 years since then, and, gave each other a hug, and it felt really, really good. And I hung out and watched them play. I hung out in the green room backstage, and we just reminisced about memories and laughed about things. And I'm like, you remember this, you remember that thing, and like the good stuff. And it was like 1 billion pounds off my shoulders. And I'm sure I assume it felt good for Frank too. I'm glad he was genuinely doing better. Physically, mentally, the band is still carrying on and doing shows and tours, and people love and respect the band. And I love that. There was a time where I didn't love that. 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. I didn't feel very good about it. So this is all wonderful things. And then I saw them again recently, a couple of months ago. My good friend Zach plays bass in Emmure now. So I had the pleasure of teaching him and showing him how to play some stuff. So I know he's playing it right. And that is the story of me and Emmure. All right, so there you have it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me for these 4 episodes discussing my beginning intro into the band all the way to my exit, to my ill feelings, to my good feelings, to now feeling wonderful doing this channel, friends with Frank and the band, enjoying my time listening to Emmure again, and being involved any way I can, or seeing the guys again when they come into town. So, special announcement is going to be next week. I'm going to make a quick video on some updates and some cool things that you all are all going to really appreciate and love, and I can't wait to share it with you. So hang tight, and gotcha. Special announcement next week. Have a great week.